Those with the broadest shoulders should carry the heaviest burden. So how come MPs earning over £90,000 are being subsidised by the taxpayer? Great work if you can get it. Work and Pensions Cabinet Minister Liz Kendall, the woman who axed the winter fuel payments for pensioners, lives more than comfortably in a £4 million London mansion in very trendy, very expensive Notting Hill. And to add insult to injury, Liz, who resides there with her husband, an ex-Etonian and an investment banker, is allowed to claim costs for the second property that she rents in her Leicester West constituency. And one of those costs is, you guessed it, for energy. Between April 2023 and July this year, she has claimed £3,810, her largest month's bill being £352, which is £52 above the pensioner's winter fuel allowance, which she has scrapped, forcing 100,000 people into poverty. That is according to her own department's forecast, and 4,000 could die as a result, according to her own party's report, which was carried out when the Conservatives were in power. Liz earns £91,000 for her MP salary and £67,000 as a minister, which gives her a salary of £158,000. Not bad. Why on earth should the taxpayer foot the bill for her energy consumption? The utter hypocrisy of this is staggering. MP and leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, said, "The hypocrisy of the Labour government knows no bounds. I will not be claiming a penny in expenses for my heating." Exactly. He can afford it, and so can she. I don't buy the argument that removing these kind of expenses from MPs won't raise much. Tell that to the farmers whose inheritance tax rate will apparently only bring in a piddly 500 million, and that's if people die. Or the private school raid. Again, the amount raised is a pittance in comparison to the 22 billion or maybe I think it's 40 billion now pound black hole. Let's remind ourselves of what Sir Keir Starmer said.
But I will be honest with you, there is a budget coming in October, and it's going to be painful. We have no other choice, given the situation that we're in. Those with the broadest shoulders should bear the heavier burden.
Well, it's time to lead by example, Sir Keir. Let's start with you lot.
Using the internet without a VPN is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. We want to help protect you. This video's sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the VPN to help keep you safe. Now, you might be asking, what is a VPN? Well, a virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of those that are looking to exploit your private information. Whenever you connect to the internet on a public Wi-Fi network, such as at airports, coffee shops, friends' houses, or even in your own home, your data is at risk of being stolen. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi network have the ability to steal your personal data with ease. T-Mobile reached a settlement this year with the US Federal Communications Commission after they suffered data breaches in 2021, 22, and 23. In 2023 alone, over 37 million customers' data was exposed. And it's not just hackers to be concerned about. Information can be censored. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news content that you love. Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Plus, we've got a huge GB News discount. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get 83% off PIA. That is under £2 a month, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
But First joining me, former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Stephen Pound, nice to see you.
And to see you, Lana.
Very good. Now listen, am I being unfair?
Sadly, you are being grossly unfair.
Really? You think that Liz Kendall should be claiming expenses for her second home and perhaps that it shouldn't be means tested?
Let me get a couple of things absolutely straight about this. OK, first of all, this £350 a month figure is for the birds. That was the 1 month, the worst possible month.
But you saw the overall cost.
I know. You divide that up and you come into well under 200.
Well, no, 3,800 up till July, exactly, so it would have been nearer £300 a month.
Let's get another couple of things straight about this. Is not her home, and she doesn't claim a penny for her home where she lives, and she lives in certain comfort in Notting Hill, and fair play to her. You know, but this is her second home. Now look, when I was an MP, it was absolutely scandalous. I was a London MP, and I could claim £23,000 a year for a second home, even though I was a London MP. Of course, I didn't. It would have been ludicrous and frankly wrong. But that's been scrapped. Now, if you're an MP, and don't forget, a lot of my friends in Northern Ireland, in Scotland, they have to have a second home. Liz is in Leicester. She has to have a second home, so she's got a modest flat in the street there, a terrace street there in Leicester. Now, look, if you're going to say to people, if you've got a decent house in London, you can't you can't claim for your second one. That is stopping.
Nobody's talking about. Listen, let's get this straight, Stephen.
You're talking about means testing.
I'm talking about means testing them for their expenses when it comes to fuel. I think that they should pay. Maybe we do contribute towards the second home. That's fine, but everything inside that home that you do. So does that mean we should be paying for fuel, food as well? When you get into that house, what cost you incur is down to you. The taxpayer shouldn't be paying for it.
Well, you don't claim for food. You used to. Back in the old days, you could claim for food.
Well, again,
that's been stopped.
And I think that should apply to fuel as well.
Look, let me just get one thing straight. There was MPs, there was a stage, when MPs didn't get a penny, and what happened, and I'm going obviously back to 100 years ago, and what happened then was that working class people could never, ever become MPs. If you're going to say to people, you're going to be means tested, you can't have a second home, that is going to exclude...
Means tested for what expenses that the government will cover? Not for the home. We've accepted that if they live elsewhere and they've got to be in their constituency, we've accepted that the amount of money will go towards that home.
So you take someone like Alistair Carmichael, who's the MP for the Shetland Islands. So what does he do? He works in London and he lives in the Shetland Islands. He has to live in Shetland Islands because that's where his constituency.
Yeah, but you're still going on about the same thing. Listen, Stephen, I'm not talking about us paying the rent for a second home as long as it's reasonable within a certain amount of money. I'm talking about when you're in that house, we shouldn't be paying for your fuel. And that's what she's claiming. She's taken the winter fuel away from the pensioners. And she's means tested that. She is more than able to pay for the fuel in this second home. So when she's in it, she can pay for the fuel when she's in it. I don't see why that should be a problem.
What about all the people who can't? Who don't have that?
Well, that's why it'll be means tested, won't it? She can afford it. So I think we've covered all bases. We means test the MP. If they're earning a certain amount of money, they've got additional funds, then we don't pay for that.
Can you imagine the bureaucracy? Don't forget,
I'm not worried about the bureaucracy. It's the hypocrisy we're worried about.
You're constantly talking about actually slashing the civil service. You'd have to create a whole new department there. But look, she gets money from her husband. Are we going to deny the fact that her husband earns a few bob?
OK, well, let's talk about benefits which you will only get if you are single. If you're married to someone, their income is often taken into account before you receive any benefits.
It's a joint income.
So once again, she's married to someone who's very rich, so we can do that. I don't see what the problem is.
We call that a joint income.
Well, they're more than happy to do it to us, so I think we should have much more parity.
Well, I mean, in some cases they do, but in this particular case, she's got her second home. She doesn't want to have the second home; she has to have it. The minute she says you're not serving your constituents in Leicester, the minute you're not available for that, then there'll be real problems with that. So I honestly, I think we can agree on the main thing. We can agree on the substantive thing that MPs outside London, let's agree on that, can have a second home.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
No, and we can agree that we should actually pay the basic living expenses,
as in the rent.
On that.
We can put money towards the rent. If they go above that, that's up to them. They can spend more of their own money, but I think it should be much...
Are you suggesting that we actually have a local area rent for Leicester or for the Shetland Islands or for Belfast?
Well, they might then try and choose a palatial accommodation.
Well, no,
if they know that it's being fully paid for. I mean, she's got plenty of money. She's still expecting...
And do you know why they wouldn't?
Why?
Because you would shine a light on it.
Well, exactly. but that's the point. But they wouldn't, and they wouldn't do it because of their own integrity and their own conscience. She should know that earning, living in a £4 million mansion in Notting Hill, then having a second home which we all pay for, she could at least pay for the fuel. Nigel Farage is paying for his.
Well, if you've just had a piece on the news about Nigel Farage probably going to pocket $100 million from Elon Musk. He's in a different position now. Look, I think...
That'll be to help him push forward if he gets that. He hasn't got
Nigel
that.
Farage represents a Clacton constituency that is 45 minutes from London. Leicester is a lot further than that.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that when you're in the home, you pay for your energy. We're talking about energy.
Well, and she does, in her home in Notting Hill. She pays
and when you move
it.
to your constituency home, which you also live in, you should pay for the energy
You
there.
can't switch it off at one home and switch it on at the other
Why
as you
not?
move between. But can you imagine...
I switch off my heating when I'm not in my house.
Yeah, but you still have to pay your council tax, you have to pay your standing charges, you still have to pay your regular charges.
And she can afford it. So listen, this is just like the pensioners. They still have to pay all of those things, and she's taken away the winter fuel allowance. If you can understand from their perspective, then you must understand.
But we've run our houses on this a few times. As far as the winter fuel allowance, not paying it to the King and to people like me and to people like Liz Kendall makes a lot of sense, because don't forget, even pensioners, and I'm a pensioner, I want to see more police on the street, I want to see the NHS, and I want to see that money being directed where it's not to millionaires and the royal family.
Well, there you go. So that's how we feel about Liz Kendall. People earning enough money to pay for their own fuel. It shouldn't be encompassed within the NHS.
I'm getting the message.
It shouldn't be. Stephen Pound, really good to talk to you.